Welcome to the Parenting Lab podcast. I'm your parent coach, Brittany, and I am here to guide you into the calm, clarity, and connection you're looking for as you transform your parenting from the inside out. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Parenting Lab. I'm so glad you're here, truly, because I feel like I'm about to give you some ideas that will make a huge difference in your relationships. I want to talk to you about something that hits home with almost every parent that I've worked with, and it certainly has for me. And this is this question of why our kids don't want to talk to us. If you have school-aged kids, and especially teenagers, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about, right? It seems like we all go through this with our kids at some point. So we're going to explore why your kids aren't talking to you and the subtle and probably well-meaning ways that you're shutting down communication with your children. And then I'm going to walk you through 3 phrases that could open that door back up. But before we get there, I just want to emphasize that these phrases are not magic scripts. I'm not huge on giving you scripts to follow. These are actually mindset shifts, okay? They're invitations. And as you practice these principles that are behind the phrases, you will become a more intuitive communicator, and the way that you relate to your child is going to change forever. But first, I want to start with something real. I want to share a moment from my own parenting journey because this is a path that we're all walking, right? Okay, so a few years ago, I had a really eye-opening conversation with my daughter, Georgia. It started out as a fight. I couldn't tell you what it was even about, but I know that I was probably trying to solve her problem because that was always my default. She would literally say anything, and I would give her really solid advice, and then she wouldn't listen to it. Pretty standard stuff if you've ever had a conversation with a teenager. But I remember in this particular interaction, at the peak of the conflict, I was so angry because she wasn't listening to me. She wasn't talking. She wasn't answering. She wasn't hearing what I was saying. She was just completely shut down. So I yelled at her and I said, "What do you want from me?" And without even skipping a beat, she looked me right in the eyes and said, "I just want you to agree with me." Holy crap. I felt like I had just been slapped in the face. It was one of those moments of clarity that happens sometimes where all of a sudden you can see just everything all laid out, right? I could see how so many of our conversations started with her saying something and then me contradicting her. And it was all the time. She would say something like, "Oh man, my hip really hurts." And I would just reply with, "That's probably fine, walk it off." I don't know, just little things like that. But when she said those words, "just agree with me," I really felt like something unlocked inside of me. Why would she say that? Do I really not agree with her ever? And if I did agree with her, what would that even look like? Would it change anything? I'm going to come back to that story actually in just a little bit to tell you what happened after that, because it's actually a real turning point in my parenting and one of the reasons why I want to share this information with you today. But let's first talk about why kids shut down when they're talking to their parents, just like Georgia did in that story that I just shared. I truly, truly believe, and actually so much research shows, that most kids do really want to connect with us as their parents. But here's the thing. Connection requires safety, particularly emotional safety. And emotional safety is something we often unintentionally compromise when we're having conversations with our kids. And here's how this happens, okay? There's 5 ways that this really happens, 5 things that we do. First, we jump into problem solving. We give them lists of things they should do to fix what's going on. You know, what I would do if I were you, right? Have you said that? Or I'm going to call their mom right now. We jump into action right away. Okay. The second thing we do, we start teaching or lecturing. Oh, this is the hardest one, I think, because it comes so naturally that we don't even realize we're doing it. We turn everything into a teaching moment. We're quoting people. We're telling them stories about stuff. We're trying to get them to understand our perspective. We're lecturing all the time. The third thing, we try to talk them out of their feelings. This is essentially gaslighting, and it happens so much more often than we think. It sounds like things like when we say, oh, it's not a big deal, you'll be fine. Or, what are you talking about? You love chicken nuggets or the color purple or whatever. It doesn't matter. We're telling them what they like. We're telling them what they don't like. Things like that. But we're trying to talk them out of the opinion that they have, whether it's a feeling, a thought, anything like that. Okay. Fourth, we make it about us. We do this when we take their experience and then we start talking about how the exact same thing happened to us when we were kids. We say things like, oh, I know exactly how you feel when I was your age, blah, blah, blah. Our own story becomes more important than their story, okay? Or number 5, we fill the silence because we are uncomfortable. We don't give them enough time and enough space to put their thoughts into words. And in order to fill that silence, we just talk and talk and talk. Okay? Or we shut it down. We get busy doing something else. That actually, kind of a side note, I do think that happens more often because of cell phones and media use in our homes. I think that sometimes we use those things to fill the silence. The conversations get awkward or we don't know what to say. Our kids aren't responding. They're trying to tell us something, but we're scrolling. So watch that as well. That just came to my mind. But anyway, so these 5 things are huge, but they usually are responses that come from a good place. We want to help. We want to comfort. We want to fix things and make them better. But what we forget is that real helping starts with attuning, okay? Not solving, not correcting, sometimes not even saying anything. It's just being with them in that moment. That's what attunement is. It's connecting on a nervous system level, okay? I once had a client who came to me because her daughter was having some behavior issues. She wasn't talking, she stayed in her room all the time, and the mom told me, my daughter used to tell me everything, and now she barely even looks at me. So when we dug into what had actually changed as her teenager was kind of getting older and this communication pattern had changed, she realized that she'd been doing some of those things that I just talked about. She was jumping into solutions too quickly. She was lecturing and yelling to fill the silence, just trying to be a helpful parent. It was really eye-opening for her to understand that her daughter wasn't actually having behavior problems. She was having communication problems. So when your child walks away, shrugs you off, or just says, I don't know, over and over, it's not always a behavior issue. It's often a communication pattern. And that is rooted in nervous system safety. When they don't feel emotionally safe, they go into self-protection mode. And that looks like withdrawal, defensiveness, shutdown. This means that our first job as parents isn't to control or fix. It's to create space for our kids to show up honestly and to say what they need to say. So how do we create that space? That's where these quote unquote magical phrases come in, right? But before we get into those actual phrases, I want you to take this in. Your child does not need you to be perfect. They just need you to be regulated and curious. Okay, those are the 2 things we're going for here. We're going for regulated, we're going for curious. When we make this shift from control to curiosity, that's when everything changes. It doesn't mean you never guide them. Of course you guide them. That's our job, right? It's okay to still have these moments of teaching and lecturing, and those things do come at appropriate times. So please don't misunderstand. I'm not saying that there's not a good time for those things, but not in every single conversation, okay? Guidance lands better when it's built on a foundation of trust. And trust is built in the smallest moments, when we listen without rushing, when we pause instead of preaching, when we stay with them in their discomfort instead of constantly trying to pull them out of it. Okay, so let's get into it. These are the 3 phrases that I keep in my back pocket and I teach to every single parent that I work with. So I'm giving them to you now. The first one, okay. Phrase number 1, I believe you. Now, this one might seem small, but honestly, it's massive, especially when your child is upset or overwhelmed or venting about something that sounds exaggerated. When you say, I believe you, you're not necessarily saying that you agree with every detail. What you're saying is, I trust that what you're feeling is real, and I'm not here to debate your experience. And this is what our kids are desperate for. Someone to believe them without minimizing or explaining or fixing. Now, this one takes practice because it requires the most restraint on your part. But consider this. Your child wants to tell you their truth. If they say someone was mean to me at school, you say, I believe you. My teacher is the worst. I believe you. You never listen to me. I believe you. You always take my brother's side. He never gets in trouble. I believe you. I hate you. I believe you. Now, remember how I told you that these phrases aren't scripts? This is particularly true here. You don't always have to say the words, I believe you. It's the intention of the message that really matters. You can say, I hear you. I know you feel that way. Well, that sounds hard. I can see that. Whatever you can say that sounds authentic and heartfelt, that conveys the message that you acknowledge that their feelings and experiences are real and valued. Okay, now why does this work? It gives your child the psychological permission they need to be in their own experience. It builds safety. It earns trust. I believe you. Okay. Now, it's very, very hard. I will say it's very, very hard to say that and mean it at the beginning, because your first instinct is going to be that of like defensiveness. Sometimes when our kids say things, especially like when I said, oh, I hate you. Okay. If you've ever had a child tell you that, that hurts. Okay. I'm not trying to minimize that at all. This is not about minimizing your experience in favor of theirs. It's just giving them a moment to understand that that's their feeling right now. And that's okay. If my daughter says that to me, because sometimes that stuff like that still comes up, but if she says that to me, it's okay for me to just believe that that's how she feels about me right now. I know that that's not how she feels about me all the time. Okay. But I believe that she has maybe those feelings right now. So if she says something like that, even if it's hurtful, I can say, yeah, I know. And I'm sorry. Okay. And then that just opens the door for more conversation. If I all of a sudden get defensive and start to yell at her and to react to those words with my initial feelings, my nervous system dysregulation that pops up when things like that happen, this is where the conversation and the communication shuts down. Okay. So what this phrase does is it just keeps that doorway open so that more conversation can happen to resolve. Okay. So just a note there. I want to make sure and kind of throw that out there. All right. Phrase number 2, tell me more. This is one of the most disarming phrases that you can use. It signals that you're interested in what they're saying without putting pressure on it. It invites depth without intrusion. And most of all, it gives your child agency. They get to decide how much they want to share with you because you're not drilling them with questions. You're opening a door. And honestly, this is a great phrase to use when you need to buy some time to figure out your own responses. There are a lot of times when I'm talking to my kids and I honestly don't really know what to say or how to respond to what they're telling me. I don't want to act impulsively, right? My first reaction is often not the one that I want to actually put out there into the conversation. So I ask them to say more. That way my own brain and emotions can catch up to what we're talking about, okay? So I want you to try this. That sounds important. Tell me more. Or I want to understand. Can you say more about that? Or keep talking, or what else comes up? Okay, so you're just inviting them to say more. Why does this work? It slows everything down. It shows your child that you're not rushing to conclusions or trying to steer the conversation toward your own agenda. You're staying with them in their experience. Okay. This is big. I actually just taught this phrase to a mom that I was working with recently, and she used it after her teen came home one day and kind of mumbled that she hated school. And normally this mom told me that she would have said, well, what happened? Or what did you do? Trying to dig into what's going on. We're trying to figure it out. Both of those questions, if she had asked them, would probably have gotten like nothing, or never mind, right? Well, what happened at school? Nothing. I don't want to talk about it, right? But this time she just said, oh, tell me why. And that invitation, after a couple of minutes of being quiet and kind of listening for it, that invitation resulted in them talking about school for like 15 minutes. And that was a huge win for this mom because she felt like she'd been kind of shut out from a lot of things. But it was because of this really simple concept that she was able to, again, open that door, open that space, and allow her daughter to share the experience that she wanted to share on her terms. Okay, so tell me more. All right, and phrase number 3, how can I help? This one is very subtle, but very transformative. It really shifts the dynamic from power over to power with, okay? If you've purchased any of my labs, you'll kind of understand what these power dynamics are. But instead of giving advice, you're inviting partnership. You're giving them the space to solve their own problems and find their own solutions, and then invite you into those solutions, okay? So this sounds like saying things, that sounds heavy. How can I help? Hey, I'm here. What do you need from me right now? Okay, sometimes they'll say, I don't know. Sometimes they'll just say, I don't know, just sit here with me. Perfect. Great. You're helping because you're not overstepping. All right. So why does this work? Because it honors your child's autonomy. It shows them you're right next to them, not trying to take control. So a bonus tip that goes along with this actually is something you may have seen floating around social media before, but it really, really works. So along with saying, how can I help? You're going to offer them a few ways of doing that. Okay. And I do this a lot. And I actually do this with my husband. This is a huge communication tip. So use this in every relationship and however it works. Okay. Even on committees and things like that you work with. So here's the options that you're going to give. Okay. First, do you want me to listen and validate? Do you want me to offer solutions, or do you want me to get involved? Okay. That goes just a layer deeper than the initial, how can I help? And it shows, it just helps you show up for them in a way that will help them the most. So anyway, that's just a little extra help for you. I love using that with my husband because sometimes, especially like, I don't know if as a mom, you feel the need sometimes to just like download all of your information onto your partner. Could be a friend, could be whatever. And my husband is a real problem solver. He likes to like do things and he sees things and he's like, oh, well, that's a simple solution. Just do this and this and this. Well, every once in a while in our conversations, I'll be like, I'm going to share some things with you right now. And all I need for you is just to be like, that was the right thing to do, babe. That's how I want you to respond. And I just want you to tell me that. And then we can go to dinner or whatever we're going to do. So honestly, I feel like that has changed the way that I communicate with my husband, not necessarily because I'm telling him how to talk to me, but because then I don't get frustrated because he's trying to solve the problem when that's not really what I needed. Okay. Sometimes I just need him to listen and to love me. Sometimes I do want his advice. Sometimes I'll be like, hey, I need you to help me figure out what to say in this email, or, like let's troubleshoot this together. And those are more collaborative experiences, but not every conversation for me personally, is one where I want my problems to be solved. Sometimes I just want to feel like I'm awesome and I want my husband to tell me that. Okay. So those can be really helpful hints too. So yeah, that's a bonus tip for you. So now let's zoom out. Okay. So we've figured out what things are that we're kind of doing to shut the conversation down. Now I've given you a few tools to open those doors back up. And so I want to just kind of get back out to the big picture. Okay. Communication isn't just about words. It's about energy. It's about presence and regulation and nervous system safety. And the truth is, many of us weren't modeled this kind of communication growing up. We're just learning it as we go. And we're just doing it the way our parents did a lot of times. And that's okay. If you take nothing else from today's episode, I want you to take this. Okay? You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be present and regulated and curious. Okay? So try these phrases this week and watch what happens when you make space, like actually real space, for your child's voice. Okay? And you really maybe might hear something for the first time. I believe you. Tell me more. How can I help? Now, Want to hear what happened with my daughter? I promised I would circle back to that, and I didn't forget. So if you remember in that story, she had told me that she just wanted me to agree with her. Okay, and I decided that I was going to do that. I was going to try to do that. So for a few weeks at the time, I made a real effort to agree with everything she said. I essentially communicated with her in the exact way that I just outlined for you today. I told her I believed her. I asked her simple questions to get her talking. I stopped lecturing and problem solving. I asked how I could help and what I could do to be a resource to her. And I learned that it wasn't as much about agreeing with her, but it was more about not disagreeing with her. Okay. I realized how often I was trying to get her to change. I thought I was helping, but really she just wanted me to be on her side. Over time, that experiment kind of faded out, but I will tell you that over that amount of time, our communication patterns shifted dramatically. I obviously don't agree with everything she says. That's not sustainable, okay? But when I do disagree, she's so much more open to hearing me out. Why? Because we have learned to trust each other, and the way we communicate is a hallmark of that growth. Okay. And the other really cool bonus of that is that when I do say something that's contrary to what she says, she is so much more open to hearing me because she doesn't hear the no as often anymore. She doesn't hear the pushback. She doesn't hear the gaslighting. She doesn't hear those things. So when something comes up that really does need to be addressed, she listens. So it was a very, very cool experience. I'll probably do a post on that on my Instagram. So check that out, where I'll go into a little bit more detail about what that felt like in that experience. Anyway, I really do thank you so much for listening in today. If this episode inspired you, I would really love it if you would share it with other parents in your circle. This work is so much easier when we do it together. I hope you'll join me again next week as we continue to explore the art and science of parenting and put your parenting to the test. Take care, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Parenting Lab podcast. For our complete catalog of online courses, free resources, or to join our mailing list, please visit theparentinglab.org. See you next time.